Hi, Annette. It's great to have
Hi,
you back on the Meaning Code.
great to be back.
Yeah, this is where we are exploring the metaphors that uncover the hidden reality. And this time you said you wanted to talk about what Jordan Peterson might think about the mechanism of the joke. And so I think this is going to be a very fascinating topic, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay, well, we're going to look at uh, we're going to go into the chaos order dichotomy that Jordan Peterson often talks about. The fact that we start off here, we're in a landscape. The landscape has a lot of facets of the unknown, the chaos that we have to find the courage to make little tendrils into the unknown and turn it into habitable order. So when we're looking at the joke today, we're going to look at a bit of an opposite process, because a joke is going to start us with order, give us a little hit of divine madness in the punchline, throw us into chaos, but it promises a higher order in return. I'm even going to make the suggestion, since we're both people of faith, that it's as if God has sweetened the path. He knows it's hard for us, as if, to take these bold steps into the unknown. It's unknown, for goodness sake, right? A person could get killed, could get hurt. But he gives us this thing called humor, where we will start with order, have chaos fall upon us, we'll have a feeling of euphoria, we'll have a uniting effect because we laugh with people. It'll be a positive experience and showing us, no, there's progress by making contact with chaos. And then the higher order emerges, the epiphany, right? And suddenly we're somehow at another octave up beyond where we started.
It sounds very similar to marriage.
Yeah.
Culture shock is another one that works that way.
Yes.
So before we go too much further, I wanted to mention to our viewers that you have written numerous books about the ideas of Jordan Peterson, and you also founded Lobster University Press. And I'm going to have links to all that information in the show notes for people, together with any other information that you give us today. So let's keep going down this track. I like that.
Okay. Well, we're going to dive in, because and where this comes from is, over the quarantine period, I had time on my hands, and I recalled the sitcoms from yesteryear that I really grew up with: Mary Tyler Moore Show and Rhoda. And to see it with my adult eyes, it unpacked such a world. I never saw all this when I was 13, okay? And then I had to really do more research on laughter and humor. So we're going there today, but I'm going to take lines from those shows so we can deconstruct them. Okay. So I'm making this claim about order and chaos. So here we have Rhoda saying to her Jewish mother, "How are ya?" And Ida says, "Well, I have had this splitting headache all day and a little touch of neuralgia and this tingling sensation in my legs." So Rhoda says, "So you're feeling good?" Ida, "I can't complain." Okay. Now, this is Jewish humor. Okay. So
it's actually funnier when you do it than it is when it's on the show.
Oh, I'm telling you, I kill myself with this. I got the best stuff here. I have to write it down. It's so funny. Okay. So how are you? We know we know what happens if I say to you, "How are you?" And you tell me something, maybe less, maybe more, but you're going to explain how you are. So that's organized. We all know what that's about. And if someone says they have a splitting headache all day, you probably just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." So when Rhoda says, so not just, it's too bad. So you're feeling good. You're feeling good. That's chaos. Wait a minute. You have just been displaced from your whole understanding of this social ritual. But this is Jewish humor. Okay, so deconstruct this for me. What does this mean? So you're feeling good. She's a Jewish elderly woman. What does this mean? Yeah?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Okay. A Jewish elderly woman. What does this mean?
think thousands of years of Jewish history.
Well, they've suffered. They know suffering for sure. Yeah.
So you're feeling good.
Oh, in other words, if that's the only problem, if the only thing that's a problem is that you have a headache, and so I kind of understood it a little different way when you first told the joke, because what it kind of said to me was Rhoda was so used to her mother complaining about really big things all the time that for her to have just those few little things, it seemed like a good day.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. Yeah, okay. I totally agree with you. But you see, that's a Jewish joke. That is
what makes it particularly Jewish?
Because there's a Yiddish word, surus. It means, oi, have we had surus? So, a splitting headache, a touch of neuralgia, a tingling sensation in my legs, right? We Jews, we complain, but we know what to complain about. We have had surus. That's the Yiddish word, right? So it's the same thing. I'm looking at it as on a cultural level. You're looking at it at a personal level, but in my work, I'm a psychotherapist. Mm-hmm. So you'll see that we are how we see things. We have been shaped by our people, our culture, whatever. It's the same thing. The individual lens is going to be affected by the national lens and vice versa, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So, if you look at who these writers were, all the writers of these shows were Jewish writers, and really smart. I'm going to tell you more of these lines. They're killer lines. They're so good. Okay. So, but we're introducing the idea, by the way, that humor has been a Jewish panacea. Now, if we can take something that is a negative, and if we can spin it, now you have Rhoda, who is a schlemiel. Everything bad happens to Rhoda. But you know what? She's also an alchemist, because something bad happens. She comes off with this killer line, okay? And isn't that redemptive? And isn't that, we're going to analyze that mechanism, what it is. But I'll say there's a revelation in it. There's turning lemons into lemonade. There's role modeling. This is how to host the aches and pains of life with humor. Okay, there's a Jewish legacy that it comes through when these Jewish comedy writers come. Some of those shows are gold. I'm telling you, I just watched one the other night. Gold. There's not one word out of that script that lost the laugh or whatever. There's some, some are. There's always a hit and miss, a factor with I'm sure these kinds of things. But I saw one that was impeccable. Okay, so okay, but we're back with looking from our Peterson frame. We said we had this way of thinking about the ritual of asking someone how they are, what it means when you get the answer. We've been thrown on our heads, topsy-turvy, but when we landed, and you laughed, and when you laughed, you had a cascade of chemicals, of hormones going through you that gave you a hit of a euphoric feeling that brought you into the present. There's, as I said, the unity of laughter. Then there's the epiphany, because, oh my gosh, now I get it. Oh, now I see there's sort of another way one can look at this. You've been expanded. And that's exactly what our world is saying, is that there's deeper layers when you talk about looking for the unity pattern in this world. There's deeper layers that await us. And in fact, humor is one way we can trip into those interesting associations that the world of unity that show the association between two disparate things. Like when Rhoda says this line about when she says, one bite of Sara Lee anything and I inflate like a rubber raft. Oh, interesting. Did you think that there was something, a common bond between the rubber raft and Sara Lee? Did you ever think of that? But it makes sense. And she just took you into the world, a net of associations, and it gave you a cognitive tickle when you went there. And as if this is our anomaly, this is an anomaly, Candy, that as if God is saying to us, have a little anomaly, it's good for you. You'll feel good. You'll have a burst of perspective, right? And of course, we know that when you laugh about it, you as if see things from the bird's eye view. The psychiatrist Milton Erickson, he collected greeting cards, birthday cards, and he had a card on his desk he would show his depressed clients. On the front of the card, it was like this galaxy. You see planet Earth in the distance and a few stars, and it's very dark. And it said on the front something like, when you think about the expansiveness of the galaxy, do you feel small and little? And then you open it up and it says, me neither, right? So again, there's our order, chaos. Oh, me neither, right? Yes, that's right, because after all, we are locked into our own experience of ego and self, and that's part of our day-to-day, and we don't give it up so fast. So there's a little epiphany that comes to us over there. Okay, so that's where we start now. But then we're going to break into a little more analysis. Immanuel Kant said, laughter is an affection arising from the sudden transformation of a strained expectation into nothing. Okay, so a sudden transformation, strained expectation, because there's a moment, there's that comedic pause, and you're waiting, and it's a strained expectation. You know what's coming. When somebody tells you these complaints, the other person says, oh, I'm so sorry to hear, it's been a difficult day for you or whatever, okay? Into nothing. Now, when she says, oh, so you're having a good day. If she says, oh, so you're feeling good, okay? You are so displaced from your normative way of understanding things, you're nowhere. But wait, no, you're not nowhere, because you're somewhere kind of better. You're somewhere where you didn't expect to go. But if relative to where you thought you were going to go, you're nowhere. Relative to getting something, you're somewhere. Oh, we're in the zone of paradox. Okay, so we're playing around here, something, nothing. So we're going to the zone of reversal. Okay, so you often see this mechanism in humor. Rhoda comes over to visit her mother, and it's an unexpected visit. So throw the door open. Oh, Rhoda. Oh my, I came to visit you. Oh, so good to see you. She says, 1 minute. And she goes to the phone and she dials her friend and she says, hello, Edna. I was calling to invite you up for coffee, but as it happened, my daughter Rhoda walked in, so I'm calling to cancel. Yes, she brought me a present. Okay, so first of all, what have you learned? Are you thoroughly confused? It makes no sense. Did you get something or did you get nothing, right?
Yeah, I got something out of it.
So what's your interpretation?
Well,
what have you learned?
My interpretation is that she so desperately wants to impress her friend that her daughter cares about her enough to come and visit her, that she's going to take the time, even before she sits down with Rhoda, to call her friend up and make a big deal out of this, even though none of that was ever going to happen. She's just doing it to make a point, right?
She's making it. And now, not only have you learned about Ida, you've learned about Edna. You got two Jewish ladies in the Bronx or in Brooklyn or wherever they are, and they do a little bit of a one-upmanship. Well, my daughter comes 4 times a week. Oh, my daughter brings me presents. Well, my daughter, right? But what is this reversal? I was calling to invite you up for coffee. But as it happened, my daughter Roderick, so I'm calling to cancel. Now that's interesting, because now imagine the cliche of a man walking with a bowler hat and he's so dignified and he trips on a banana peel and he goes flat down. Is that funny?
It never has been funny to me, but a lot of people laugh at it. Yeah.
What? But why are they laughing?
Well, because it's an upside down of, you expect him to be dignified and polished and competent, and instead he falls flat on his face. And people enjoy seeing other people fall flat on their faces, because then it makes them feel a little bit better, elevates them a little bit while this other guy is down. I mean, there's a lot of reasons people would laugh at that.
But just to humanize it a little bit, because in Jewish humor, we have something called the shlemiel, the poor schlepper, and you see, Judaism is trying to say that it's better to be in the position of the shlemiel than to have all sorts of entitlement and attitudes and whatever, because you know what? We are all going to die. We're all going to be brought down. So it's kind of like a humility, a seeding humility plan. And it helps us walk in that path. It helps us, it desensitizes us to humiliation, in fact. When
that is so interesting, because I've heard this word shlemiel my whole life, but somehow I always thought it had a pejorative cast to it. I never realized that it was an attribute to be attained. But it does fit right in with humility. I mean, being able to laugh at yourself, right?
Well, this comes through, Rhoda is the classic character for this kind of thing. And she'll come up with these lines. There was something I just wrote down the other day, was something about, she was out with this date. She says, we spent 10 minutes trying to find his worst side. We couldn't find it. Mine we found quickly, the front. Right? Like, meaning it is her center of gravity to be self-deprecating. But that's, in Jewish humor, that's classic. That's, I'll tell you a Jewish joke, okay? On Yom Kippur, there's a particular prayer where routinely the Orthodox people, not only they're hitting their chest in repentance, but they get on their knees, they put their head on the floor. And so in this joke, everyone's down, okay? In this joke, you have the rabbi and the cantor. It's a big day of the year. The rabbi, we're at that moment. So the rabbi gets on his knees, puts his head down and says, before you, Lord, I am nothing. And the cantor, following the rabbi's lead, gets down on his knees, head on the floor, before you, Lord, I am nothing. Well, Mr. Schwartz, because this is like a, not so Orthodox congregation, he's in such a state, he's so inspired. He gets down on his knees, puts his head on the floor, and he screams, before you, Lord, I am nothing. And the rabbi looks at the cantor and says, look who thinks he's nothing. So we're playing with nothing and something. In Hebrew, the word for me is ani. 3 letters. Rearrange the letters and you get the word ayin, which means nothing. We are supposed to rearrange ego so that we become nothing. And then we'll be...
Can I tell you something really quick about
sure.
Chinese characters?
Yeah.
The Chinese character for me is made up of 2 parts.
Yeah.
Top part and a bottom part, and they fit in the same square.
Okay.
And the top part is lamb, and the bottom part, oh no, I'm sorry, I got that. I am so backwards. Forgive me. It's the Chinese character for righteousness.
Okay.
But me is on the bottom, and above me is the lamb. So it's the lamb over me. So I'm nothing. The lamb is everything.
Now, by the way, isn't that a messianic vision?
Yes. Well, and it's sacrifice, everything. It's the whole thing, right?
That's right.
Picture.
And when we think about the lion lying with the lamb, when normally the lion will consume the lamb, Chinese medicine would say the lion is the liver. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm ambitious. I'm going to do it. If the lion gets carried away, says Chinese medicine, the the lamb is the spleen, the body, that basically we get too excited about doing things and we end up consuming and depleting our lamb, our body. We have to put our lamb first. It is our bit of divinity that we've been given, and they don't reissue alternate versions. This is your one lamb, okay? Don't sacrifice it. I mean, you will sacrifice it. You will spend every bit of energy in your life until you have none left, but don't sacrifice it for the wrong thing and in the wrong way. Don't be stupid with it. Don't let ego get all carried away. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's just an exercise in depleting the lamb. So yes,
that's see? So interesting. Yeah.
So we're coming away with a celebration of the schlemiel, where there's such fabulous lines. I tell you, everybody should sit, and I feel that you could watch Rhoda and you could watch Mary. Remember something. When Lucille Ball got all her laughs, I love Lucy. She was always a bad girl. She was sneaky. When Mary gets her laughs, she's a good girl. She's always trying to do good, okay? And one of my arguments, if I can stray for a second, is that Mary was a role model, Mary Richards and Mary Tyler Moore, for women in my age group, because there were concerns, there was feminist causes. But Mary, on one hand, she's climbing the ladder, and she was a real role model for us. But on the other hand, she always had deference. She called Lou Mr. Grant. She did not barrage the white man with hatred and polemics about, you're oppressing me, why aren't you paying me the same amount as the last guy who did this job. But we watched her take that issue up with him, and we watched her get the money, right? We learned how to be feminists, but with a soft touch and with perfuming the world with grace. And who is there now to be the role model for the young generation of feminists? I don't recognize the movement, and it's very uncomfortable to watch what they're up to. And you wouldn't say that about women in my generation. We were playing in the system, and we were excited about what we were going to achieve. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. And, last night, getting ready for this, I was telling my husband that we were going to be talking about the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And I said, did you ever watch that when you were young? Because he came to this country when he was 12, I think. So like 1971, he came here from Hong Kong.
Uh-huh.
And so he's living in Brooklyn. And I don't remember exactly when Mary Tyler Moore was, but it was sometime in there when he was a teenager. And so he said, I watched it all the time. He said it was so comforting.
So comforting.
Yeah. I said, well, that's interesting. So why would you say it was comforting? What was comforting about it? And he said, well, there she was. She just had an ordinary job, and yet she could have a life. She could have an apartment. She could, have some success in life, and things would just work out. And he said, we came from a place where there were maybe 5 families living together in one room, where you had to put a cage around your possessions with a padlock when you left the room, because otherwise they'd all be stolen. We came from that kind of a world. We come to New York, and here's somebody who's able to make it with just an ordinary job. And it gave me hope. It was very comforting. I thought that's a really different perspective, right?
Yeah, but you know what? Maybe not, because I'm saying that there was something very special about that show. And by the way, literally every single character, every single method actor in there got a spin at having their own TV spin-off, okay, at one point or other. When does that happen? How many shows go off and everybody goes off and has Ed Asner goes in to become Lou Grant, and Rhoda becomes Rhoda, and then she has another one, and each one of the people, even remote. How is it? Even in Rhoda, you have Julie Kavner was Rhoda's sister Brenda. Schlemiel, classic Schlemiel, like a Woody Allen female version. So she's the wealthiest of them all because she is the voice of Madge or Marge on The Simpsons. She's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm saying like this. There's this Jewish concept called mazel. You heard of mazel tov?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think mazel tov means?
Usually it's used as a celebratory call, right?
Yeah. So people could think it means good luck or it means congratulations. It doesn't mean either of those things. Okay. It comes from the Hebrew word nozel. And what is a nozzle? A nozzle, like a nozzle in English. Okay. It's a tap. Mazel tov. Tov means good. May you have good flow. May you have good flow with divinity, that you're kind of channeling the energy of God in a way. Therefore, you have good luck because, the cosmos is on your side. If you know about that show, because I've been learning more about the history of it, there was fabulous mazel. And they had like 27 Emmys they won. When they left after 7 years, they left on a high. But all the writers were being kind of seduced into, hey, do this for us and do this. Everyone wanted to move on to greener pastures. Usually these series are like, nobody's watching now. Not so with Mary Tyler Moore. So then in terms of the song, they're shopping for a song. They can't decide. This song comes along and they're like, oh my gosh, they know right away, this is the song. And how does the song end? You're going to make it after all. And that's what comedy is. You're going to make it after all. Even with this barrier, even with this obstacle, you're going to make it after all. Okay?
Well,
there's the hope.
Me of one of the things that Jordan Peterson is always saying is that the reason comedy is necessary is because life is so serious. So
right.
Because life is so serious and there is so much suffering, you have to have a sense of humor, right?
Okay, but now let's go a layer deeper, because I'm interested, now that we get it, that we're talking about chaos, order precedes chaos, or whatever, we get that, okay? And we've already said there's some interesting drama going on with reversal. We take it a step further. From Rabbi Akiva Tatz, he's basically saying, whenever you are dealing with something that is let's say an analog of divinity, there's always a reversal. When something goes from a higher level to a lower level, there's always this quality of reversal. For example, when a baby is born in utero, it has the circumstances so that it properly can accommodate the nutrients that are coming in, and it doesn't need to breathe. Everything is perfect for its environment. By the time it comes out of this environment, you know what the Talmud says? It says, that which was closed opens, and that which was open closes. There's a complete reversal. Rabbi Tatz is actually a medical doctor, and he says it's absolutely true. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that everything reverses. And suddenly, a human being is only equipped to breathe and to live here. How did that happen? If you are from outer space, you're a Martian, and you're watching delivery, what do you think you're watching? Do you think you're watching birth, or do you think you're watching death? You think you're watching death. Mm-hmm. And then a baby is born. It's a reversal. How many times do we go through these reversals? Oh my gosh, go through menopause, right? Go through, I tell you, like it was like being 52 going on 90. The idea that I would actually, a shred of energy. At the age of 56, I remember the day, oh my gosh, I'm back. I'm coming back, right? Time and time again, we are going to go through this gravitational slingshot where we're going in one direction. What about the terrible twos? What about the kid who's like, says no, and then tugging on mommy's skirt, and then says no, back and forth? What about teenagers? There's constant reversals happening at every stage of development. So when you're seeing this reversal mechanism, you're in the terrain of the sacred. So, we just figured something out. Humor is an analog of divinity. And it's a bit of a problem. Why? Because anything that is an analog of divinity can take you amazing places, or if it's wrongly used, really not good. Terrible degradation. Other examples, sexuality, alcohol. How about alcohol used appropriately, celebratory, in the right way? It's often in religious ritual in many cultures. Oh, but used excessively, degradation. So it's a very important conversation we have about humor in light of what's come out about Ellen DeGeneres, right? So
I heard what came out.
Well, what came out is that it's sort of common knowledge that she's her behavior is inappropriate, that she's bullied, that her executives have basically abused staff, that there's been even maneuvering of guests. And one of the things that I see, imagine this, you're sitting on the set and you're being interviewed by her. And you know what happens? Because this is a really funny joke. There's a coffee table, but it's a box. And there's somebody planted in that box and you're busy talking. And then just when you're not expecting it, a person jumps out of the box screaming and runs away. And Ellen, of course, knows it's going to happen and knows when it's going to happen. She just sits there and you're the guest and everybody's laughing at you because is this
react? Yeah.
Is this sadism? Like, what is this? Is this funny? This
No.
is degradation. This is not funny. So then we say, so this is the revelation that has come out and it's all over. It's sort of like, her halo has toppled. Oh, she's so nice. She gives a waitress a tip of $2,000. But there's one story after another. A famous celebrity was on the show, and Ellen wanted to get out of her that she was pregnant because the rumor was she was pregnant. So she made her have a glass of wine. She wanted her to make an excuse that she wouldn't have any wine. And actually the woman ended up losing that baby, by the way. She did have some wine, probably not because she had a sip of wine, but it's like bullying. I'm going to get it. It's like, ew. Okay. That, in other words, we have a comedy culture that has fallen so low. If we understand.
This reminds me of when I lived in Japan.
Yeah.
I lived in Japan from 86 to 89, and I was so shocked at the tawdry nature of television in Japan. I was appalled. And now our television looks very much like television looked in Japan in 86 to 89. I mean, there would be shows with full frontal nudity. There would be shows with full-on sexual activity.
Wow.
In the show. And they had a comedy. They had these comedy shows where people would do outrageous things. And those comedy shows started showing up here about 10 years ago, maybe, where I remember seeing one here about 10 years ago where there are a bunch of different holes in the ground and you have to walk around in the dark and maybe fall into one of these holes accidentally, and that's supposed to be funny, right?
Right.
That's the kind of shows they had. But I remember one in particular when I lived in Japan. There was this show that was funny video clips. And people would send in funny video clips. And one show, all the funny video clips were of some father and his child, different fathers and different children, where they'd have the child do something, trusting that Papa was going to be there to catch them, and then Papa would back up and let the kid hit the ground. And I'm like, how can this be funny? You've just destroyed that child's trust, not only in the father, but in their whole universe. That child is never going to think that the world is a good place and that there's hope for the future, right? I was just appalled. But that's the kind of thing you see all the time on TV now.
See, and that's why I'm doing this work right now. I wrote this book after quarantine, working with these ideas. The book is called Knock Knock, The Kabbalah of Comedy, The How, Why, and What of Funny. And we have to put this on the table Steve Epstein is a comedy writer, and he calls comedy the art of hope. Comedy is supposed to be the art of hope. A person who, he calls the template, a person who is lacking the tools and skills to succeed, but is going to do the best to show up and retool and approach the project with hope. That's what comedy is. But it's an analog of divinity. It is easily corrupted. It has not been properly used in this society, and it's got to stop. So I feel like in this day and age, a lot of people are getting called out, a lot of corruption coming up. And I say, let's put our comedy culture on the spotlight here so we could say, this is not acceptable, right? And so let me continue, because we have to look even deeper at this mechanism. And the mechanism, so a particular Rabbi Jacobson, really interesting material about laughter. And he's saying, okay, how are we going to understand what is laughter and what is humor, what is a joke? So let's go back to Genesis for a second. So when you're in Genesis, before anything is created, what have you got?
Void.
No.
Okay. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Who?
God.
Who? God. Oh, God.
Yes. In the beginning,
in the
God.
Beginning,
yes.
You have God.
Yes.
Now, you have.
I thought you meant besides God.
No, I meant God. That's it. There's all God. That's it. And in Hebrew, the word is Ein Sof. No end, no beginning. It's just everything is God. Okay. So then what happens is with every creation, you have what's called the mask of nature. You have one layer, another layer. The more you see the birds and the fish, the sun and the moon, you have stuff to look at. And you don't see God anymore. God conceals himself in the mask of nature. So then what has to happen, and it may or may not, you are being asked to find divinity because he's hiding. Now, why is he hiding? Because if he wasn't hiding, you would be blinded by the light. So he needs to hide. And if he wasn't hiding, you would lose your free choice. He's, in fact, giving you an opportunity to grow and develop and to find him, okay? So then it's question. Some people, Abraham, he figured it out. He saw beneath the veil. And then it's like, oh, once you figure it out, God is in your life. He doesn't need to hide so much anymore, as we know. So basically, the point is that we have to puncture the veil of nature. That you can imagine that everything in this world, it either breaks or dies, because the finite world is not infinite, and it is a mask, and everything's going to fall away. So if you think about what's happening in the moment of a joke, you're going along the normal order of things, okay? D to D to D. What is the normal order of things? Entropy. And, this happened, that, the normative, whatever it is, it's our entropy, it's our lives, it's the same old, we say like same old. But then when the punchline comes, it interrupts, it's as if clears the clouds and the sun comes through. And suddenly you're bathing in this chemistry that gives you an experience of euphoria, and you're having a unity experience, right? And you've got this new perspective. And in that moment, you're not even breathing. It's a moment of presence. You're just, you're marinating in the present. In other words, you're having a little bit of a communion with God. It's just a touch. And it's pleasant, right? Mm-hmm. So that the joke itself is a mechanism that gives us access to divinity for a fleeting second. Did you ever see the Kool-Aid commercial? Kool-Aid's here. There's like a billboard for Kool-Aid. And then all of a sudden, Kool-Aid Man. You ever see Kool-Aid Man? A big picture with arms and legs. Burst through, Kool-Aid's here. in a way, that commercial is a metaphor for messianic revelation, for something we kind of see as a flat idea, but it's going to come to life. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the joke is kind of like that. It's going to give us a way of cracking the code, getting under the veneer, accessing a root positivity. And at the same time, when do we use our humor? We're having a bad day. Oh my gosh, and this goes wrong and that goes wrong. If we can make a joke, we are transporting ourselves up and out of the veil into the sweet spot, our relationship with divinity. So it's like finding God in your sock drawer, right? Just when you weren't looking. So again, it's special, and we have to really unpack it. We have to, this ultimately goes where I went last time when we spoke, is that we all have to work on our speech. We have to clean our speech. I used to be involved in comedy improvisation. The problem was, it was gutter humor. It was potty talk. I couldn't take it anymore. I thought, how is it that, to be creative and funny, you have to have, like, with the lowest element. We always have to go for the ha ha guffaw, right? And that's what I like about Mary Tyler Moore, is that there's Mary Tyler Moore or Mary Richards, she's our protagonist. She is the one we want to be like. And she operates within boundaries. She tries to be a good girl. She's not saying zingers to anybody. She wants it to be nice. But we laugh because she gets in these situations and she's a bit stuck how she's going to be assertive and how she's going to deal with this little quandary. She starts to stammer. She can't figure out. We laugh. We laugh because we've been there ourselves. And we've been there ourselves because at that particular moment in time, we, as a nation, as people, had more composure, had more commitment to grace as a term of being in the world. So we, as women, really identified, we're not going to turn around and give somebody a piece of our mind. We're going to try very delicately to manage the situation. So she was a wonderful role model. If you look at that show, by the way, you'll see there's 3 characters. Valerie Harper once said, a friend of hers said, Mary is who you want to be, and Phyllis is who you don't want to be, and Rhoda is who you probably are. And Rhoda has she's got rough edges, rough around the edges, and we can see her flaws. Mary's trying to be the perfect person. Phyllis is downright evil, okay, and so narcissistic and so self-absorbed. Now, in Tanya, it's another Jewish mystical text, there are the 3 concepts. There's the righteous elder, there is the evil person, and there's someone called the in-between, the Benoni, the one in between the 2. And most of us are the in-between person. We have our flaws, we have our virtues, and we have to always try to shoot for the elder, to be the righteous sage, or the tzaddik in Hebrew. So in fact, I call Mary Tyler Moore Show a morality play, because you'll see these 3 characters, as well as some other characters who add a bit of spice, a bit of corruption, a bit of whatever. And it's this question: how will good prevail? How can the good character manage these difficult characters and still affiliate and be a team player? And there's so many lessons embedded in that comedy. That's comedy worth watching. There's a storyline that we can learn from. So
there's a real difference too in the kind of laughter that's generated by that kind of comedy and the kind of laughter that's generated by the lowest common denominator kind of comedy, because that, and so much of what I've noticed, it has happened to humor in the last, I would say maybe the last 15 to 20 years, is what I would call cynical humor, the kind of humor that appeals to your cynical side, or that what the kids would call ironic, or a lot of these memes that are ironic, that show up the incompetences of the world and the bad way that the universe was designed, and it's this very cynical, negative kind of humor, and you have to laugh at it because you recognize it, but it's the kind of laughter that just makes you feel, it makes me feel sordid when I laugh at it,
Yes. An example of that, let's say The Simpsons. Super cynical.
I've never watched The Simpsons, so I can't.
Well, what you'll find is a lot of this laughter you're describing, if you really analyze it, it's about the male archetype and it's about the father archetype. And it's making a fool of the hero, or making a fool. And who's it making a fool of? God, divinity. In other words, divinity is that's my man, right? That is the yang of all yangs, the hero of all heroes. So when we have one show after another that shows kind of like the male is an idiot, and this is something I write about, because if you track these shows, you will see when I was young, there were shows like Father Knows Best, The Brady Bunch. There were shows where My Three Sons, where the father was an authoritative, stately figure who played a fatherly role. Then we went into one series after another where the father was an idiot, where the father where you had, even Mork and Mindy, where you have foolish people. Bill Cosby, right? Sort of these father figures, but they're kind of bumbly, and the woman knows better. We lost the mantle of respect. We don't look up at Homer Simpson. What a jerk, right? So we ended up making jokes. The cynicism is that which we revered, we're going to trash. There's no cause for reverence or respect anymore, right? So I want to put that together with secularism, that it's sort of kick the can. You're going to kick that which we used to look up to. Now, if the cynicism is, it's not worth looking up to anything. Well, show what an idiot all these, so to speak, authority figures are, right?
Yep.
So just a couple more points over here then. Because another piece that you're going to find in the humor is, I'll give you an example before see if you guess. Okay. Now, Gary moves into the same building where Rhoda lives, and he is very interested in Rhoda, and Rhoda is not interested in him. So he makes these amorous overtures. It's very awkward, and she's having none of it. So he says to her, "Have you ever slept in a waterbed?" And she's looking at him and glaring, and there's a pause, and she says, "Have you ever slept in a hospital bed?" Now, is that brilliant? 8 words. 8 words. Okay, what has just happened? Because there's another piece of humor that is being illustrated right there in those 2 questions. Where did we start and where did we end? I'm asking you.
So he says, "Have you ever slept in a waterbed?"
Yeah.
Which immediately, you get it right away. That's an amorous come on. He's hoping to get a little.
Okay, so where is he starting from? Where are you anchoring him as his starting position? Give me one word.
Jerk.
Okay, how about love?
Oh, love.
A positive emotion. Well, where does she end with? One word, and it's a negative emotion.
Yeah, violence or hate or...
Hate. So you now, in 16 words, have traversed the pathway, the polar opposites of love and hate. Well, guess what? Remember this line in Genesis, which says, in masculine and feminine, he created them. Remember that line? Mm-hmm. Meaning, divine relates to bringing the two polar opposites together and embodying them, actually, and manifesting them. That's the yin yang thing. So whenever you can bring somebody to the door of paradox, you're bringing them to the door of the divine. So time and time again, so when I said that line to you before about this business about, I was calling you to invite you up, my daughter came, so I'm calling to cancel. There's that paradox there. It works in healing similarly. If you, as a hypnotherapist, if you want to zone somebody out, if you want them to, as if, transcend and get to the highest level, so you'll say suggestions like moving right into the comfort experience, having left every worry behind. You can look forward to looking back on. You will constantly pepper your script with dichotomies. You'll say, your conscious mind can think and wander. Well, your unconscious mind can float above it all. And that's the polarity. There's a conscious and there's an unconscious. The part of you that hosts the polarity, that's the unified divine spark. You pop a person into a higher frame. So once again, there's this other link that we have to divinity, jokes with the paradox, with the reversal, things going in one direction and then snapping back into the other direction. That's the address of divinity. And that's a calling card of the good comedian. That's a sophisticated humor that really not, toilet talk, not ha ha ha, right? Silliness.
It's so interesting that you said that, because before we started talking, I jotted down a few notes for myself of things that I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
I had recently been listening to YouTube of C.S. Lewis reading The Four Loves. And the first of the four loves is the Greek word storge, which apparently is the kind of love that would be, it's kind of the lowest level of love, but it's affection, the kind of affection that builds up even with someone that you don't know all that well, but you know them over many, many, many years, and you just get used to being around them. And so you have a certain affection for them, or the affection that you would have for your dog. So he's talking about storge and how this affection is kind of linked to acceptance, kind of tolerance of people's foibles. And that there is a level of love in that. That's not the same level as romantic love or friendship love or God's love, but it is a level of love. And I was thinking about how there is a kind of affectionate value to the Mary Tyler Moore humor. It's this kind of warm, cozy humor. It puts you in a place where, and every once in a while, it's just a little bit edgy to turn the world upside down. But you kind of know you're going to end up on the safe side. And the other thing it made me think about was that humor might somehow be connected to forgiveness, because there is that quality in forgiveness that overlooks, that's willing to overlook injury, overlook hurt, and so forth. And there's this one thing that Jordan Peterson did a while back on, he doesn't talk very often about love, but I'm just going to read, I transcribed the script of this 1 minute segment because I thought it was so important. He says, love is the wish that things would be good. It's the attempt to orient yourself toward making things better. It's predicated on a deep appreciation for being, despite its suffering and deficiencies. It's a decision to act, to move things toward the good. That's what sets the parameters of the aim. It's the opposite of the Mephistophelian attitude. It's the decision to open your heart to existence. It's in that framework that truth takes place. Truth has to serve something. Truth has to be bounded inside something, and that's what it's bounded inside. And it seems to me that when we laugh at something that is one of those times that brings us into that sacred space that you're talking about, that's a moment that we're willingly opening our heart to existence.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
Somehow it's connected to love and truth. And he's basically saying that truth is embedded inside of love. So comedy or humor is somehow aligned with, the best kind of humor is aligned with truth. And they're both embedded inside of love. I guess that would be the picture I'd want to draw.
And what about if we say the access channel is nothing? Because we're going to have to shed a few layers, potentially. And that's where the forgiveness thing comes into it. And we said, because sometimes we're bound up in resentments and, right? So this business about being able to just let go, let God, to just do a neutral thing, as if to just float, right? Just lighten up. Then that is transcendence, we say. We go up into this place of nothingness, so to speak, right? And by the way, what if you think I said before this line, we talked about moving the everything moving to nothing. But there's this concept called timing in humor. So what is timing? It's a pregnant pause. It's dosing out a little bit of nothing, as if we're about to take you nowhere. We're about to give you nothing. And so to really do that line properly, you need to prepare for it by dishing up a little bit of nothing. And then it'll be something, but something different than what you thought you were getting. And that scoops you up and takes you to the zone of truth. Why truth? Because it's transcendent and it's higher order information. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Never thought about it before, but Sara Lee and an inflatable raft. You know when those rafts inflate, you pull a button and it goes, you have a Sara Lee cake. There's something, that's a useful connection. I think there's truth to that. And isn't it good if somebody's going to have an eating disorder that they, damn it, have a good sense of humor while they do, right?
Yes.
And in so doing, aren't they an ambassador of love? Because they're loving life, they're loving the connection of explaining and expressing it to you. They're finding redemption, even though there were these unfortunate circumstances. Maybe it's forgiveness of the divine. Maybe we're forgiving the divine for the imperfections. And the laugh is the expression of forgiveness, right? Because
this morning I was out walking with my daughter and we went by a house that was tented because of termites. I don't know if you have termites where you live, but in California, termites get inside the wood of houses and eat up the wood, and
that's
the whole
terrible.
house will just get disintegrated. And the reason is that we don't have winter here. So termites don't die in the winter, they just go on living, right? So in California, when you sell a house, you have to have it tested for termites, and they come around and they drill into the wood to see if you've got termites. And if you do, you move out of the house, they put a big, gigantic circus tent over the house, and they fill it up with a chemical, and that chemical embeds itself in the wood, in the house, to kill all the termites, okay?
Yeah.
So my daughter says to me, why on earth do termites exist anyway? What was God trying to do with that, Why do termites exist? And I said, well, I don't know, they're pretty terrible things. But I said, one thing that does come to mind is that there are so many things in the world that are pictures to us of larger truths. Like we look at the ants building their colony and we see how these tiny little things can achieve so much more because of their social structure than they would otherwise be able to. And we learn something from that. And I said, termites are pretty good picture of what happens when you let little things into your life that just eat you up inside and destroy everything that you are. So I said, they're a pretty good picture of that. So I think that everything in the world has that quality to it that's a kind of a metaphor or a picture to us of some larger reality.
Absolutely. Can I just add one more on that?
Oh,
Because I'm interested in it. In 5-element theory in Chinese medicine, the 5 elements each have psychological correlates. So wood in Chinese medicine, and this is tangential, but because you've mentioned it, wood governs ego, governs industry, governs pride, governs, right? What does a tree do? It grows up, it's strong, it's a piece of wood that you could create functional things. So it's on one hand, it's our drive to do something. It's masculine, really. But on the other hand, it's also the home of ego and pride and some qualities that really have to be tamed. So isn't that interesting that on one hand, look what you can build with wood. Wood as an element is full of bravado, like the very psychological trait it gives us. But the thing that can bring it down is like this little tsetse, like this big. That is a real lesson from God, right? Yeah. Lest you get big in your britches. It doesn't take too much to bring all that strength and power and industry, right, crashing down. So I'm with you. Yep. Yeah. So, yes. So, okay. And just one more point. When we talked about the reversal, we said that some of these jokes they go up and they go down. I was going to invite you and now I'm calling to cancel. So if you looked at it mathematically, +1, -1, and now you have nothing. Right? So it's just, and we just keep coming back as we do different looks of what's happening in a joke. We keep coming back to the same address of divinity. And the problem is that if we saw divinity in full light, it would be too much for us. So we have to get tiny little glimpses, right? And if humor can give us a little insight there, a little tickle there, right? A little euphoria there, we just get our little hits and it could serve us on a spiritual path. I just want to read this short poem by Emily Dickinson. It's called Tell All the Truth. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. Too bright for our infirm delight, the truth's superb surprise. As lightning to the children eased, with explanation kind, the truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind.
Wow. Yeah, that's like so perfect.
So if if we've seen that Ellen DeGeneres, her halo is toppled, her crown has fallen, and everybody's coming up with, oopsie, I wasn't looking. Suddenly you're going to hear, it's terrible what's happened. We're going to revisit this. Okay. So then I say, how about this? What if we understand that comedy giving us little inroads to positivity, God, good, right? Let's reclaim it. Let's start from ground zero. Let's work on our speech. Let's get rid of this consumption with everything has to be titillating. How is it this language has to have 2,500 words for sexual innuendo, for the genitals? Why do we need 2,500 slang words for those parts of body? Why are we so busy talking about them? What would we be talking about if we weren't talking about 4-letter words? And if we take them from our language, from our vocabularies, perhaps could we take and elevate speech to such a level? Maybe you too could write like some of these Jewish writers who came up with these crazy, crazy brilliant lines, okay? So it's a vision. Anyway, I've written much more in this book. Knock, knock. because we didn't talk about knock knock jokes, we didn't talk about peekaboo, but it relates, of course, if you can put it together in your mind. Knock knock, the Kabbalah of comedy, the how, why, and what of funny. And I'm coming to the conclusion that comedy and humor is not a condiment. It's not like, oh, I'll have a little bit of ketchup, it'll make my meal better. No, this is a spiritual commodity. Bring it on. We're going to use it. We're going to use it well, and we're going to revolutionize how we understand our relationships to each other, how we look with a big perspective, a bird's eye view at situations, how we therefore don't get caught up, snagged by ego. There's much hope, and there's much to be achieved by integrating humor, good, healthy humor, back into our lives.
Well, and the other thing is, and if you just step out one more band of reality, one more level of the cosmic vision, the only, Jordan Peterson's always talking about how the jester or the trickster is the only one who gets to speak truth to the king.
Yes.
And then I don't know if you've ever heard Jonathan Peugeot talk about the jester.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
Oh, yeah.
I should listen to that. Yeah.
He has a couple of excellent videos. One of them is on the Joker. He does an analysis of the movie, The Joker, and how that movie was kind of a prophetic vision of the world getting ready to turn upside down, which is so funny because he did that before COVID happened, before all the riots and all that. And we have certainly seen how everybody being locked in their houses, and then when the riot started, it sort of opened the door for all of this mayhem. And then he did another one on Kanye West as being the vision of the trickster, the one who is going to turn the world upside down. And it's just very, very interesting. Very interesting when you look at the symbolism of the trickster, and look at the biblical symbolism. Very interesting connections. I think you'll enjoy it.
That's right, and I'll look at that. And
I'll put a link in the show notes of both those.
Sure. The connection between humor and truth. I've definitely heard Peterson talk about that. Connection. And, I feel that the people writing these comedies, I don't think it's the case with comedies today, but back then, the people writing those shows, those Jewish writers, were tricksters. And the somersaults and flips that they would do with language, right? This business about, have you ever slept in a waterbed? Have you ever slept in a hospital bed? How do you think of that, right? That's magnificent. And constantly, I sent you to watch one of the Rhoda shows. Did you watch that one?
I watched episode 1 of season 1. Yeah.
Well, okay, but there's an episode of Rhoda called Visiting the Levies. And I'm telling you, you could laugh so hard at what they have dreamed up over there. Okay. It is hysterical. So
I'll have to watch it. Yeah, no, I missed that one, but I'll put a link to that one in the
yes,
the notes too.
Do, because it is absolutely classic, genius classic. Laugh out loud, right? So playing with identities and so that's why I say, you want to see how a trickster writes a comedy? Watch that.
Sounds great. And so the name of your book again is Knock Knock.
The Kabbalah of Comedy.
Knock Knock.
The how
comedy.
The how, why, and what of funny.
Okay.
Yes. So there's, it's been a very interesting few months. This has been my deep dive to keep me busy with being a lot of time at home. So I thought I've always wanted, I have a bit of a background. I studied stand-up comedy. I did some comedy improvisation. And I always wanted to understand better how comedy was related to the spirit world and not just to the world of entertainment. So this was my opportunity to really do reading, listening, and you could say an experiential journey with with revisiting those TV shows from yesteryear.
Well, it seems like a really good thing to be doing during COVID,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Keep your mind on things above and on that which brings us into the presence of divinity. Seems like
Yes.
Yeah.
It gives us new visions for moving forward in productive ways, right?
Well, this has been so great, Annette. I just really appreciate having you with us, and I look
Thank you.
forward to getting from you any links that you want to add to the show
Okay.
notes. And I
I
understand
will.
you've written an article that you're going
Yes.
to be publishing as well about this topic.
Yes. Yes. And
Is that the same name? Is that
that's going to be in the Times of Israel. That's called the aha of haha, Kabbalah on Ellen's fall from grace.
Oh, okay.
The aha of haha, Kabbalah on Ellen's fall from grace.
Okay. Very good. I hope to see you again one of these days. And in the meantime,
we will.
take care of yourself and laugh a lot.
Okay, good. You too. You too. Great to connect.
Great to connect. Bye-bye.
Okay. Speak to you later. Bye.